Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about this tier list that MOTSUNABE made recently. If you don't know who MOTSUNABE is, he's one of the best Falco players in the world. Just recently got a top 8 MA Suma top 14.5, almost beat me. He's just been having a phenomenal year in general, and there's a couple things I agree with on this list, a couple things I disagree with. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about that as well as trying to dissect the differences between the Japanese and NA meta. And it should be noted that nothing is ordered within the tiers, and starting off with the bottom tier, there's a couple of characters that I would move up. I would definitely move up Lucas. He's my only one that I have a major gripe with. This character's theory stuff alone at least puts him in the top 60 for me. Like, don't get it twisted. I don't think Lucas is a super good character, but he's just not in this bottom tier echelon, as I already mentioned. The theory stuff with his snake specifically is really, really strong, and even just in practice, he's got 3 kill throws, he's got a really solid damage output, his neutral is just annoying to deal with, and overall I do think Lucas is a pretty decent character. Again, he's nowhere near amazing, but he's definitely not in the super bottom echelon of the game. And then the rest of the characters, I can maybe see Bowser Jr. and Belmont being moved up. I would personally move them up, but the difference between bottom tier and top 70 isn't that big of a deal, so it doesn't really matter. In the top 70 area, there's some things that I like and some things that I don't like. Starting with the things I like, Marth being down here, absolutely love that. I am not a believer in Marth at all. I don't think this character is very good. Maybe this is still a little bit too low, but I like the dramatic, so we're going to keep it that way. I think Wii Fit should probably be moved up to the top 60 area. Same thing with Link and Jigglypuff. Again, it's only by 1 tier, so it's not that big of a deal. The only character I would move more than 1 tier would be Incineroar. There's not any really good Incineroars in Japan, at least that I can recall, and over in NA, we do have the terror that is Skyjay, so I can definitely see a bit of a regional bias right there because Skyjay just makes this character look so ridiculous, and the fact that you can get revenge hit to 80 and then just die off a side B is incredibly scary, and it's one of the things that makes Incineroar so broken, but also he's an incredibly slow character, and if you have a good game plan versus him, it's really difficult for him to get in, so I'm assuming that's MOTSUNABE's mindset. Chrom is also maybe a little bit too low, but arguably having the worst recovery in the game. You can kind of put him wherever, and I'll let it slide. Next up is going to be the top 60, and I have a handful of grievances with this here, starting off with Banjo. Now, normally this would be a big issue for me, but if I had to play Torguri every week, or even just one time, I probably think Banjo was this good too, so I'm going to let it slide. Then you're going to have Lucario. Lucario is a character that I'm constantly having an internal battle with, because I want to say that Lucario is really, really bad, but honestly, I think this placement's fine. My main issue with Lucario is the fact that Max Aura Lucario is really good, but a lot of the time, you're not going to be able to get Max Aura Lucario because people are just killing you so early in this game. But even if you get it on just one stock in a game, you can still win that game because Max Aura Lucario is crazy. Like, if it always had Max Aura, Lucario would be one of the best characters in this game, but he doesn't, and because of that, I still don't think super highly of Lucario, but I think this placement is fine. Sephiroth, it's going to be the same thing as Marth. This is definitely too low, but I don't think Sephiroth's very good anyway, so we're going to let it slide. Isabelle, actually very surprised to see Isabelle this high, especially considering that Villager is in the bottom tier. Again, this isn't ordered, but that means that he has at least 11 spots between Villager and Isabelle. I guess 10 spots between Villager and Isabelle. I still think Villager is the better of the two, but there are a couple things about Isabelle that I do think are better, especially the jab. The stuff you're getting off jab with Isabelle is pretty insane. Next up is going to be Mega Man, and this is the character that I have the biggest problem with in the top 60 area. I would have at least Mega Man in the top 40, and I know I think a little bit highly of Mega Man, but still, having him next to characters like Zelda, Isabelle, Ike, it just feels super weird. This character has some insane damage. His neutral is really annoying to deal with. He's got some amazing boxing tools, and with all the footstool stuff that's been discovered as of late, and Mega Man gets a ton off of footstool, I think this character is just going to get better and better. Next up is going to be Ike. Very surprised to see Ike this high. I would have Ike in the bottom tier. He's just such a linear character, and he's also slow, and that's kind of where my analysis ends, because like Ike, there's not a lot of depth you can go into. Dr. Mario. Now, normally, I would have Dr. Mario in the top 70. I think most people have him in the bottom tier, but Dr. Mario, he hits like a truck. He's got some pretty insane combos, and his X Factor is really good. I still wouldn't have him this high, but I think it's not the end of the world. Zelda's a character, I will admit, I don't know a ton about Zelda, but I don't think that she's this high. I would have her in the bottom tier, towards the higher end of the bottom tier, and again, this is unordered, so she might be right there, but it's just shocking to me. She's super slow, she's very precise with her hitboxes, and also her frame data is abysmal besides like 2 moves, so just don't think Zelda is super great. Donkey Kong and Kirby, honestly, I don't really have any issues with those characters being this high. They've got some pretty insane damage output. Donkey Kong has such a good advantage state, even though his disadvantage state sucks. I think this is perfectly justifiable. Next up is going to be the top 50 tier, and to be honest, I think this is the best tier in the entire tier list. There's only two characters that I would change, and that's going to be Zero Suit and Sheik, and even then, they'd only be by slight differences. Maybe Sheik's would be a little bit more dramatic to the top 30 area, but Zero Suit's a character that I do think is still pretty good. Her mobility is insane, which obviously makes her neutral really good in last stock, last hit scenarios, even though she doesn't have any massive kill options. The fact that she's so evasive makes her really scary, and she still does have some incredibly easy ways to take stops, like a nair flip kick, like a forward air, one flip kick. She has a lot of confirms in a flip kick, but in 2023, a lot of people are ready for those cheese confirms, so a lot of the time it's up to the Zero Suit players to nickel and dime people, and she's very good at doing that, but when characters are just doing 60-70% off hit, I can see why she'd be this low. Sheik, on the other hand, has all the things I said about Zero Suit, but she has the crazy confirms, and she has the crazy damage output. Needles is one of the best projectiles in this game, and Sheik is just such an insane character. She is incredibly difficult, and I will dock her points for that, but I would definitely expect her to be higher, at least in the top 30. Next up is going to be the top 40, and there are two massive issues I have with this tier, and that's going to be the yellow fellows of Pac-Man and Pikachu. Starting off with Pikachu, I've talked about him a lot on this channel, so I won't spend as much time, but Quick Attack and Back Air are both top 40 characters by themselves. When you add it to the rest of Pikachu's kit, I feel like you can't not have this character at least in the top 20, even if you're super pessimistic about him. Again, I still have Pikachu in my top 5, which I know is higher than most people, but this character's damage output's insane. The fact that he really doesn't have a disadvantage, this under the stage stuff that Shiny Mark has been doing as well recently pretty much just makes it so he doesn't even get ledge trapped anymore. Like, Pikachu is just such an insanely good character that it really shocks me to see him this low. I'm very curious for the reasoning behind that. Pac-Man as well, I don't think as highly of Pac-Man, but I still think this is easily a top 20 character, borderline top 10 character. His damage output is just ridiculous. He has the craziest kill confirms out of nowhere. There's so many intricate setups that you have to know when you're playing against this character, and also Bell is just so scary. Like, Bell is one of the best items in this game, if not the best item in this game. I'd have to think about that a little bit more, but it's one of the most solid kill confirms that you can have, and the amount of pressure that Pac-Man's able to get off it is ridiculous. He also has the best grab in the game, which only helps. And the rest of the top 40 tier, I do have some issues with. Like, I would move Inkling down only by one tier. Falcon, I would move down. Roy, I would move up. Wario, I would move up, but it's only by one or two placements, so it's not as big of a deal as the two yellow fellows. Next up is going to be the top 30, and the two biggest characters I have an issue with here are going to be Ice Climbers and Joker. Now, Joker's a character that has been continually going down in the public eye, and I can't see why. He's a very high maintenance character, and the Arsene counterplay has gotten a lot better, but even without Arsene, Joker is still a good character. He has a lot of very hard combos, but if you're able to execute them, you can get a bunch of damage with his dragon stuff. Gun is a ridiculous tool, and even though people are better at evading Arsene, you still gotta play around Arsene, and Arsene gun is ridiculously good. If you get hit by Arsene once, you're probably just gonna die, because Joker Advantage State with Arsene is one of the best in the game. I still think Joker is extremely good, even though he is very difficult, and this is a little bit too low for me. I'm even willing to compromise putting him in the top 20, but top 30 is still too low. And Ice Climbers, I still think that people are super bad at killing Nana. I think people are going to get better at that, and once they do, they're going to realize Ice Climbers isn't super great. Like, this character isn't bad. I would have Ice Climbers in my top 50 because, again, I think Nana is so easy to kill. People are just not very good at it because they're prioritizing Popo. No, you just run, you kill Nana. I don't care if you would have gotten 20-30% off that Popo. It does not matter, because once Ice Climbers is just the one climber, they are arguably the worst character in this game. And also, the matchup set for Ice Climber is abysmal. Like, yeah, the matchups that they win super hard, but the matchups that they lose are just abysmal. Another thing to consider is that Ice Climbers is a pretty popular character in Japan at the top level, at least in comparison to the other regions, so I can definitely see the influence there, and even I can't deny on hit, even in the bad matchups, you're still taking a boatload of damage from Ice Climbers. Even if it's one icy, your damage output is still fairly solid. I just think that the character that has a universal game plan to be countered can't be in the top 30. Like, every single character in Smash Ultimate knows how to deal with Ice Climbers, and it's beating Nana. Once you get rid of Nana, the matchup becomes so much easier, and that's just such a big flaw that I think Ice Climbers players are constantly having to work around. A lot of other characters just don't have to deal with that. Other characters that I would move down would be Young Link and Ken, not because I think they're bad, they're actually really good. I just think that characters below them are a little bit better. And there's a couple ones I would maybe move up, most notably Sora. I think super highly of Sora personally. I just think he's a late game character, and we're finally starting to see him flourish, and once we do see him flourish, he is going to take over. Feels a little bit weird that characters like Palutena and Kazuya aren't in the top 20, but I could definitely see arguments for it. Next up is going to be the top 20, and we have the two most despicable placements of the entire list in Rosalina and Toon Link. Starting off with Toon Link. Now, I am starting to get on the Toon Link train. If you've watched the channel for a long time, you'll know I do not think very highly of this character, but I do think that he is better than Link now. I've at least come to accept that. I think he's probably somewhere in the top 50, maybe the lower end of the top 40 area, and again, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a bad character by any means. I think in practice he gets the most utilization out of Bomb out of any of the links. He has some pretty good combo routes. His out of shield game is really strong. His camping game is good. Everything about Toon Link is good, but nothing about him is exceptional. That's why I don't have him this high, because all these characters above him have some insane thing about them. The most insane thing I can think about for Toon Link is Bomb Fair, which is pretty good, but it's not top 20 good. And our other problem child is going to be Rosalina, and it's a very similar situation to Toon Link. I'm not super high on Rosalina. I am starting to come around somewhere in that top 40, top 50 area, and with Luma, I think she can come close to matching a lot of the characters that are around her. She has a pretty solid damage output. Her advantage stays really strong. She has amazing ledge trapping, some of the best walling in the game, just a really annoying neutral in general, and in last talk, last hit scenario, she's incredibly scary, but when you take away Luma, Rosalina is just kind of meh. She loses a lot of the things that make her really scary, and she's just this massive character that is insanely light. So after one or two missed interactions, Rosalina is in risk of death, and that's with Luma on the field as well. And you have to consider the characters that are around her. Again, when Rosalina has Luma, I think she's as good as the characters around her. Not better, not even close to better, but as good as a lot of these characters. But when you don't have Luma, you are just so much weaker. You look at a character like Mario, Min Min, Toon Link. These characters are always just going to be what they are. Rosalina, 20% of the time, is just going to be a significantly weaker character, and because of that, it makes me dock her a lot of points. Again, I think I'm a little bit pessimistic about Rosalina. I'm starting to see the light. I think the highest you can have her right now is somewhere towards the higher end of this top 40, but her being in the top 20 is just too much for me. Also, I forgot to mention, Rosalina is one of the hardest characters in this game. Like, I think it's Peach and then Rosalina. You have to put an insane amount of work into this character, and I just don't think the reward is enough. And the only other character I have a problem with in the top 20 is going to be Olimar. I would move him down probably to the top 30, maybe even down to the top 40. Definitely the higher echelon of top 40. And it's not really anything to do with Olimar being bad. I just think characters that are above him are a little bit better. And the rest of these characters in this tier, I think, are absolutely fine. We have finally reached the top 10. I have no issues with Rob. This is probably where I would put him, to be honest. Aegis, I have Aegis in my top 5, but with the recovery being as volatile as it is, I don't think this is that big of a deal. Cloud, I think Cloud is top 20, but again, character is very good. Back air alone is a top 30 move in this game, so I don't think it's that egregious. Yoshi, they have Yoshidora like Toraguri. I'm going to let it slide this time because I would be traumatized too. And then you're going to have Shulk. Now, Shulk, I have a real problem with. Don't get me wrong. Arts are broken. The fact that I can just kill you at 50 or live at 150, get out of the combo for free, have the best mobility in the game, jump super high, just do a ton of damage off of 2 hits is insane. But when you look at the characters that are around Shulk, like, yeah, Shulk might get 50% off of Buster Art because he does something crazy. Fox just gets that, like, always. All the time. He doesn't need a special art. And yeah, Shulk might have these super crazy kill confirms when he has Smash Art on, but Mario can just upper fair you and you die at 50% always. Shulk in the arts is very strong, yes, but without the arts, Shulk is just kind of a meh character. Like, he's not bad by any means. He's probably still like a top 50, 60 character in this game, and with the arts, he's obviously really good, but the fact that he doesn't always have them, and most characters already have access to a majority of those tools, I think it kind of undervalues them. And again, I'm not trying to downplay arts. Arts are still insanely good. I just don't think that Shulk is good enough to kind of keep up with them. I think Shulk is still a good character, don't get me wrong. He's still in the top 30, maybe top 40, and also, I should clarify, if you're a top 40 character in this game, you can win a Super Major. Like, I think top 40 characters are broken, and I think Shulk is broken, but he's not more broken than a lot of these characters. And we have finally arrived at the top 5. Sonic, Steve, Game Watch, got no issues there. They're all in my top 5. Snake is in my top 10, so seeing him in the top 5 isn't that far of a stretch. Diddy Kong, though, that's where I do have a bit of a issue. He's still in my top 20. He's still a very good character, and I think, in theory, Diddy Kong has a ceiling of a top 5 character, but also, I think Diddy Kong's floor, compared to all the other characters in the top 30, aside from the obvious ones, is one of the lowest. I just think the average of Diddy Kong is somewhere within this top 20, because you've seen the stuff that Tweak and Aaron can do to people, all the Japanese Diddy Kongs as well, because there is a lot of very talented Japanese Diddy Kongs, so I could definitely see the influence there. They can do some pretty incredible stuff, but If you're not doing that insane, incredible stuff, I think Diddy Kong does get outclassed a little bit. He is an extremely difficult character, and you need to have a lot of setups and a lot of knowledge on a bunch of different characters in this game. And because of that, I don't think he's better than characters like Rob, characters like Aegis that don't need to work as hard and can still get effectively the same thing. Again, I think the floor for a character like Aegis, for example, Aegis' floor, very, very high. Aegis' ceiling, though, is nowhere near as high as Diddy Kong. But when Diddy Kong isn't at his best, but you won't always be at your best all the time, I think he gets outclassed by a lot of the characters above him, and because of that, I would have him in the top 20. Still a good character, just not a top 5 character. And really quickly, before we wrap things up, I want to compare this tier list to another Japanese post tier list so we can see which characters are maybe a little bit more influenced by player bias and which characters are more influenced by regional bias. And if you look at this tier list that was recently made by Hurt, as you can see, Diddy Kong and Yoshi, again, being very highly rated. Yoshi because Yoshidora, Diddy Kong because, and I have to drive this point home again, there are so many good Diddy Kong players in Japan. Like, it's actually unreal. You're going to have Banjo again being way higher than you'd expect him to be on an American tier list. You're going to have Mega Man being super low, Pikachu again down in the gutter, and there aren't really any super good Pikachu players in Japan, so I kind of get it, but to see this character this low is insane to me. They've clearly never seen what Shining Mark is doing to people. Pac-Man's going to be low as well, and Kazuya, again, a little bit lower than you'd expect him to see on most NA tier lists. And do Hurt and Motsunabe speak for all of Japan? Yes, so you know that this is definitive, and at least we can all agree on, from region to region around the world, that Steve is definitely the best character in the game, and I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the support. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub, all that yada yada, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!